Today's video is brought to you by Card Kingdom. And right now you can get this sweet Scoop Soldier sticker when you order over on cardkingdom.com. Just mention in your order notes that you want a Scoop Soldier sticker when you check out. Hey friends, it's Tomer and welcome back to Budget Commander. With quarantine preventing most of us from playing Magic together at the same table, some people have turned to long distance solutions to get their Commander fix. While the most common method is to play via webcams, one often overlooked method that I highly recommend is playing Commander on Magic Online, aka MTGO. Now is the best time to give it a shot because Cardhoarder is offering free 5-ticket loan accounts that you can use to play powerful Commander decks for free. Tickets are a MTGO currency, with one ticket being equivalent to $1, which doesn't sound like a lot, but with most digital decks costing a fraction of their paper counterparts, you can easily build powerful decks on a 5-ticket budget. In a recent video, I showcased 5 Commander decks that can be borrowed with a free Cardhoarder account, and it was way more popular than anticipated, with demand for the decks quickly increasing the cost over their 5-ticket limit. So now I'm back with this video covering 5 more decks, and this time I'm going to keep the price of each individual deck under 4 tickets before publishing, so you'll have more time to borrow them before they spike over the 5-ticket limit. But before we dive into the decks, let's briefly go over what you have to do in order to start playing free decks on MTGO. If you want an in-depth guide to setting up and playing MTGO, then Seth has done an excellent job covering all that and more in an article and video that I have linked in the video description below. But to quickly summarize here, first you'll need to install Magic Online, set up a Magic Online account, and upgrade it to a full account, which is a one-time payment of $5. Then register your free 5-ticket loan account with Cardhoarder. And that's it, you're ready to play. Whenever you want to borrow some cards, simply select them from Cardhoarder or use MTGGoldfish's Buy from Cardhoarder button to paste entire decks into your cart, and then pay with your loan account at checkout. Once you've completed your order, an automated bot delivers you the cards on MTGO, and returning the cards simply requires clicking Return Order on Cardhoarder, which summons an automated bot to collect the cards from you on MTGO and restores your loan account balance. It's really that simple. Now that we've covered how to get the cards, here are 5 more sweet brews that you can play for free on Magic Online. First up is Feather Voltron Control. Feather the Redeemed is the most popular Boros commander and one that lives up to its hype. While the majority of Boros commanders have their abilities tied to attacking, Feather does something totally different, rewarding you for casting instants and sorceries that target your own creatures, returning them back to your hand at the beginning of the next end step so you can keep casting them over and over each turn. This powerful and unique ability transforms normally junk cards into powerful card advantage engines as you keep casting them over and over for ever increasing value, resulting in a grindy Boros control deck that outvalues and overwhelms the rest of the table. Pretty much all Feather decks are focused entirely on their commander, and my version is no different. With Feather on the field, cheap cantrips, spells that replace themselves by drawing a card turn into card draw engines as we repeatedly recast them. Cards like Bandage, Crimson Wisps, Defiant Strike, and Expedite can be cast once on each player's turn to keep drawing a card for 1 mana over and over again. Since the entire deck is reliant on Feather, our deck is filled with ways to protect our commander from removal, such as Sheltering Light, God's Willing, Cloud Shift, and Otherworldly Journey. Feather is so important that it's usually correct to delay casting her until you can both cast her and protect her on the same turn. After that, we can repeatedly remove threats by targeting Feather with Fall of the Hammer, Reckless Rage, and best of all Chandra's Ignition, or clear the board of non-legendary permanents with Urza's Ruinous Blast. Finally, we win the game through commander damage, boosting Feather's damage with cards like Titan Strength, Psychotic Fury, Scroll of the Masters, and the ultimate toolbox, Sunforger. And since I expect to be asked why I've left out some of the most popular Feather cards in my version, I think cards like Spellgorger Weird, Guttersnipe, Electrostatic Field, and Akroan Crusader are unoptimal even in budget Feather lists. These cards, while neat, are unnecessary in the deck, diluting our Feather-focused game plan. So if you're looking for a unique Boros control deck that grinds out your opponents with junk cards turned into insane value engines, then Feather the Redeemed is for you. Number 2 on our list is Muldrotha Graveyard Control. Muldrotha the Gravetide is one of the most popular commanders in the entire format. Muldrotha is a unique graveyard commander. While most graveyard decks focus entirely on one card type, usually creatures, Muldrotha encourages you to have a variety of permanent types in your graveyard, letting you cast one of each type from your graveyard on each of your turns. This leads to a grindy control deck that outvalues the rest of the table by constantly casting, sacrificing, and recasting permanents from the graveyard for ever increasing value. While most Muldrotha decks are grindy value engines, since the commander encourages permanents of all types, there's a huge pool of good cards to work with, so there's a lot of variation between Muldrotha decks when it comes to card choices, which I find really neat. My Muldrotha list is pretty vanilla, with most of the popular Muldrotha cards showing up. Our goal is to ramp with cards like Sakura Tribe-Elder, Skull Prophet, Font of Fertility, and Wayfarer's Bauble. To speed up the process of filling our graveyard with value, we self-mill with cards like Satyr Wayfinder and Vessel of Nascency, or use powerful tutors like Survival of the Fittest and Mythos of Brokos. We have many ways to draw cards, from casting Atris, Oracle of Half-Truths, evoking Muldrifter, sacrificing creatures to greater good, or best of all, drawing cards for doing Muldrotha things with River Kelpie. Our deck is jam-packed with ways to stop our opponents from doing things, with answers like Lenalendra Archmage to counter spells, Playcrafter and Caustic Caterpillar to remove permanents, and the deliciously evil Mist of Stagnation to prevent our opponents from untapping. We have a variety of ways to get stuff out of our graveyard, getting back any card with Nyx Weaver or Tamiyo Collector of Tales, yoinking any creature with Animate Dead, or recurring all our lands at once with World Shaper. Once we've had our fill of value, we put our opponents out of their misery by draining them to death with Kokusho the Evening Star, beating face with Lord of Extinction and Consuming Aberration, or sacrificing them to Jhoira Golgari Lichlord to kill all our opponents at once. So if you're looking for a graveyard control deck that is open-ended and has a huge pool of cards to work with, then Muldrotha the Gravetide is for you. We've just covered 2 control decks, so let's balance things out with some aggro. Gishath Angry Dinos. This is a dinosaur tribal deck that wins the game by smashing faces. Despite having a small card pool, the archetype is surprisingly powerful and can quickly end games if underestimated. A lot of its power lies in our commander. Gishath comes out of the gates swinging as a massive 7/6 with Trample, Vigilance, and Haste. Whenever Gishath deals combat damage to a player, you reveal that many cards from the top of your library and put any number of dinosaur creature cards from among them onto the battlefield. It's common to have a totally empty board before casting Gishath and then immediately having a lethal army of dinos after a single combat step. This is an absolutely insane ability that can single-handedly win you games and is well worth Gishath's whopping 8 mana cost. All we need is a bunch of dinosaurs in our deck for Gishath to flip over and we're golden, but there's actually a ton of neat overlapping synergies that we can build upon. First is manipulating the top cards of our library to make sure we're flipping dinos with Gishath. We tutor dinos from our library and put them on top with Forerunner of the Empire and Congregation at Dawn, yoink some from our graveyard with Reinforcements, or rearrange the top of our library each time we cast a creature with Cream of the Crop. These cards not only help Gishath and generally help us draw the cards we want to see, but they also let us run lots of other top deck payoff cards, like putting them in play for free with Descendant's Path and Lurking Predators, drawing them with Domri Raid, or casting them with Vivian, Champion of the Wilds. Since Gishath's ability scales with how much damage it deals, cards that boost its damage, like Goring Ceratops or the flexible Boros Charm, means we're dishing out both way more damage, but also flipping more dinos in the process. Best of all, however, are extra combat steps. Not only do they let you swing with Gishath extra times, which is lethal enough on its own, but if you have a way to give the creatures flipped with Gishath on the previous swing haste, then you've essentially won the game as you start to attack immediately with all of them. Savage Beating is terrific, and Breath of Fury is the best of the best. If you attack with Gishath plus another creature enchanted by Breath of Fury, you'll flip dinos with Gishath and then sacrifice the enchanted creature to take an extra combat step and move it to a flipped dino, then do it again until your opponents are all dead. Gishath is far from the only powerful dino in our deck, however. We're loaded with powerful standalone dino options, like the board-wiping Awakening Sun's Avatar, the combo-tastic Zakama Primal Calamity, the insane card advantage engine Italia Primal Storm, and the beatstick ramp Wayward Swordtooth. But the reason this deck is called Angry Dinos is because our focus is on the dinos that have the Enrage mechanic. Cards like Ranging Raptors, Ripjaw Raptor, Trapjaw Tyrant, and Silverclad Ferocidons. These cards are terrible by themselves, but if you can repeatedly damage them, they become insane value engines. If you trigger their Enrage ability 2 or 3 times, they're amazing, and anything after that is just gravy. Our deck has tons of ways to trigger Enrage, pinging creatures with Raging Swordtooth and Marauding Raptor, or making them fight with Domri Raid or Domri Anarch of Bolas. We even have some Enrage combos, such as making Cacophodon indestructible with a card like Heroic Intervention, and then activating Pyrohemia, dealing 1 damage to each creature and player, triggering Cacophodon's Enrage to untap a red mana source, and tapping it again to pay for another Pyrohemia activation for infinite activations and infinite damage. You can kill all your opponents if you're at the highest life total, or you can make a huge army of Polyraptors, whatever works. So if you're looking for an explosive stompy deck with tons of overlapping synergies and love dinosaurs, then Gishath Sun's Avatar is for you. So we've done control and aggro, now it's time for some combo. Jhoira, Weatherlight Captain, draws you a card whenever you cast a historic spell. The more historic spells we cast, the more cards we draw, the better Jhoira becomes. So the most logical way to build the strongest Jhoira deck involves casting an infinite amount of historic spells per turn, drawing an infinite number of cards in the process, and eventually winning the game however we like to do it. Since the most abusable historic cards are artifacts, that's the card type we'll be focusing on in this deck. First, we jam our deck full of historic cards that we can cast for free. Some of our cards can always be cast for 0 mana, like Herbal Poultice, Tormod's Crypt, or an unkicked Everflowing Chalice. But we also have many ways to reduce the mana cost of our other artifacts to 0, like Semblance Anvil, Cloud Key, and Ethereum Sculptor. With these cards, we can quickly and consistently cast our many artifacts for free, letting us draw through our library with Jhoira. We can draw a ton of cards off Jhoira alone, but eventually we'll reach a point where we have no more artifacts in hand and fizzle out. To prevent this, we can smooth out our draws with the help of Artificer's Assistant bottoming lands, or draw twice as many cards with Vedalken Archmage, but most important of all are our mass artifact bounce spells like Retract and especially Paradoxical Outcome, letting us recast all our free artifacts and draw a ton more cards in the process. With our insane card draw engine online, winning becomes super easy. Either we burn out our opponents with cards like Reckless Fireweaver, crush them with a servo army made by Saheeli's Sublime Artificer, or we combine Words of Wind with free mana rocks to bounce and recast our rocks, generate infinite mana, and bounce all our opponent's permanents in the process, but most often we'll win by pew-pewing them to death with Aetherflux Reservoir. So if you want to play a very simple and straightforward all-in combo deck that is incredibly powerful at such a low budget, then Jhoira Weatherlight Captain is for you. We finished this list with my personal favorite deck, Edric Spymaster of Trest. This tempo deck is looking to get out of the gates faster than our opponents, attacking and drawing tons of cards off Edric while answering our opponent's threats with cheap removal. The deck can quickly snowball out of control, developing our board and hand while protecting ourselves from anything our opponents can throw in our way. The heart of the deck is our 1-drop creatures. We have evasive beaters like Spectral Sailor, Fairy Seer, and Wingcrafter that will drop most of our cards off Edric. We also have our mana dorks like Elvish Mystic, Arbor Elf, and Elvish Pioneer, which are primarily to ramp out Edric and our other cards, but can sometimes get in for combat damage and draw cards as well. Once we've established a board of creatures, we start chaining together extra turn spells like Notorious Throng, Karn's Temporal Sundering, Withering, and Temporal Mastery, poking our opponents to death as we keep drawing more cards, cast more creatures, and attack over and over again. If our opponents dare try to get in the way of our delicious card draw, we quickly shut them down with cards like Spell Pierce, Unsubstantiate, and Autumn's Veil. So if you want a very simple and straightforward tempo deck that is very aggressive, full of interaction, and draws tons of cards, then Edric Spymaster Trest is the deck for you. And that's 5 more powerful commander decks that you can borrow for free using Cardhoarder's loan program. I made sure that all these decks are under 4 tickets each before they were published, but keep in mind that the previous 5 decks spiked out of the budget range after a day or two, so I'd be quick on picking these up if you're interested in playing them for free online. Let me know what you'd like to see covered on a future budget commander by leaving a comment down below, and until next time friends, see ya! Thanks for watching the video. If you liked it, help us out by clicking that like button down below. And to keep up with the latest and greatest, click on the subscribe button, and don't forget to hit that bell icon to get alerts whenever we have new videos. And if you want to check out similar videos, click on the links here and here.